I have been watching myself kind of fizzle out a little bit, and I was going through a storm. I inboxed him and I said, hey bro, there's a lot going on right now and I need a favor. And I didn't give him much detail, but I was like, listen, there's some stuff on my chest and I can't write. And I don't know how far out you're looking for artists, but if you could put me on a lineup, it'll make me sit down and it'll force me to deal with myself and it'll force me to release. And he said without hesitation, no problem. And so I just want to thank him because I was looking at videos of myself, of my old poetry, and not recognizing who I was, and it's so sad to be detached from somebody you know who you are. So I made a promise to God that if he helped me put my pain on a piece of paper, that because I'm a poet, I do metaphors and analogies. This will be my metaphorical, leaving it at his feet. So I know we're pressed for time. I have a short one and a longer one, and I will get out your hair, okay? So thank you in advance for being my safe space, Ology. Confession of a Backsliders Bystander. Anxiety is my vice of opportunity. I would say my vice of choice, but there's no way I opted for this. And what makes matters worse is all the little subsections I fall into: obsessive compulsive, social, panic attacks, secondhand. I have the worst secondhand anxiety. Like anything on TV, if it's suspenseful, a little too cute or embarrassing, if I've seen it, it was probably in 30-second intervals with lots of pauses in between, maybe even over the course of a few days, debrief with the nearest friend before it has even finished. Just to make sure I can handle this. I say all this to say I know what it's like to have the only thing that feels certain. Be that uncertainty looks awfully like the onset of tragedy. It's the gut feeling that my assumption will turn out correct while desperately wishing the former. I imagine that this is what it would feel like to watch a loved one about to bungee jump. With a worn down harness and a rope that continuously slips through fingers, attached to a railing masqueraded by their deepest desires to appear a lot less fatal, connected to a balancing beam over an ignited eternity that I don't think they're ready for. It's like one stumble too many with judgment gaining in a musical interlude that predicts demise, but you don't have a pause button, and I can't look away. There's nothing to stop the sudden rise and fall of my chest. All I know is that this is the most real fear has felt for me in a long time, and I can't walk away from this. Ever so often, there are moments where God shows me tangibly that he is real, and no example has been more chilling than his absence in your eyes. Nothing more polarizing than how far your heart feels from its origin and your complete indifference to it all. Confession, I don't know how to reach you. I feel like a pawn in a mattress straddling the fence, and where I used to be your favorite ally, complacency is now the only one you want in your team. Confession, remaining here was supposed to be about love, but I have watched it torment past the boundaries of my sacrifice. I apologize for any time I blurred the line between love and tolerance, like us having a rapport justifies me settling below a standard. I apologize for any time I chose peace over truth, and you may think I chose to do what was easy, and I'll admit I might have chose the path of least resistance, but there is nothing easy about watching a downfall that can only be understood by pensive prayers and petitions pounding pavement up until paradise. A spiral that you desperately want to engage in, but can't afford to get caught in the whirlwind. A grief that could be overwhelming if not held back by the mere hope that day can be synonymous with opportunity. Confession, I've never desperately wanted someone else's salvation so bad in my life. But I just want to see you again. And part of me feels guilty, like I should be more gracious as a bystander to someone who's breaking, but I can feel the tremors too. How can I not be impacted by the pieces that scatter after the crash of I'm a casualty of everything that ricochets? Confession, I'm so mad at myself. Confession, and God. Me for not praying harder, him for appearing like he's not hearing me for being frustrated and angry and sad and scared, and him for seemingly not taking notice, me for being helpless and well, him for giving us free will in the first place, me for not always believing that it is his desire that none should perish, and him for permitting the amnesia of his goodness that persuaded you away from him. I just keep begging God to help you find conviction again, to rest and repentance. See, I like to pray in my car. I swear my prayers know your name so clearly. I think the branches that encompass my commute try to spell it out just to touch and agree. My tears have watered the greenery on the side of the highway. My steering wheel knows how to brace itself for when I grasp too tight. And my playlist on shuffle knows just what songs I wish were branded on your soul. Some days when I pray, My heart jumps out of my chest. I literally watch my vessels morph into fingertips just long enough to grasp the hem of his garment and etch on your name. Because how else do you stop someone that's determined to only bring their fist to spiritual warfare, or their only armor is guilt and pride, and it ain't as tough as it looks? How do you stop someone that is looking for an answer that they're not looking for and have already disregarded confession? I felt disregarded. And I wanted to blame that on this too. And while that might have some truth, the biggest factor is I disregarded myself. I cocooned myself into your heart, nestled right into your hurt, and became so in tune with the words of your sorrow, I forgot what my own post sounded like. My worry became a fixture on my consciousness, and I fixated on throwing all of my efforts into the wind, praying that something would land in my favor. I'm not saying that I was wrong for loving you so hard. I'm saying that I was wrong for not loving myself enough, that periodically my priorities shift in a way that doesn't always serve the one that I face in the mirror, and surely doesn't serve the one that I'm called to service. I was so concerned with your position, I didn't realize that I had become more wavered than grounded, that disappointment calloused me away from his feet too. But it turns out, God's not afraid of my vice. That an ounce of faith can do a lot more than all my efforts combined. Turns out my tears made it to heaven, and even what I can't see is done, and I'm believing him for you. Turns out it's easier to love you through when I'm fixated on him instead. And the sound of my prayers like my own name too. God said, you know I love them, but girl, I love you too. And today I just need to sit in that confession. This is the first thing I've confessed in a long time that I don't really feel guilty about. Thank you. In a previous life that doesn't exist, I'm a singer-songwriter, but because the Lord didn't anoint my vocal cords the way I saw fit, I'm a poet. But my sister, who is extremely talented, I will exploit her gift as often as I get the opportunity to, so I would like to call her up for my last piece. And in case I get emotional, I just want to thank you guys in advance, because if I start crying, I'm walking off the stage as soon as I'm done.
Woo!
Track, please. No simile, smiles, or crafty composition, because maybe once all the bells and whistles are stripped away, you can see my pain clearly. I'm just hoping that when the dust settles, you can still see my desperation. Right now I'm drowning, and today my pen doesn't feel like a raft. It's taken on the image of an anchor, and it's plotting against me with gravity when I ask God to make me his hands and feet. I guess I thought I would be doing mere puppeteering, and that would have been easier because it would have had less to do with my own preparation. When I asked him to make me a living testimony, sure, I considered it admirable, but I also considered all the ways that this path could strive. I thought it would be a beautiful thing to let the world know that I fell apart, but survived. No one told me what it really meant to be broken into beautiful, that pretty hurts wasn't exclusively for tight hairstyles or sore arches after high heels, that healing requires more than foundation. This looks pretty, don't it? But it don't feel that way, and I promise you I'm never singing Refiner again. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so when I place myself in his hands, my definition no longer mattered. This is more than what I bargained for. No one warned me that on some days this would feel like the promise of a starting line, and on other days I would look back on ones that I thought were hard and call it my rock bottoms. Wildest dreams, no one told me to be careful what you wish for, that progression isn't linear, and I can't tell if I'm coming going, do you think pain knows I can feel him in every language? I can see him just as clear every hour. No one told me that life would ask if I, as bride, would stay with God for better or for worse, and mean it literally. Because right now I need you, literally. God, my heart isn't weak, it's tired. It's straining, holding on by what appears to be pure delusions. See, I'm in awe of the works of your hands. I marvel at the things you've done, poring over passages to prove the track record of how you deserve it all, including the fragments of my heart I have left. And I haven't really decided if it's hard to give it to you because I'm embarrassed of the mess I've made of it, or if I'm not convinced that you even want this, or if the shards are okay to stay in my hands because there's blood on them anyway because I feel too far gone for it and I'm sorry. And I want comfort, but I don't know what I'll do with all my spare time once all the agony is gone because I don't deserve this. I've done you a disservice, stumbled over my shortcomings, flat belly like serpent. Now I'm aimlessly searching while simultaneously hurting. God, don't you see I've derailed from my purpose, but nevertheless, here I am trying to convince myself to stand on the principle that you can do more with it than I can. When I asked you to unbreak my heart, I thought I would just get up from here and walk away instantaneously, like I could feel you filling each crack of my heart simultaneously to my next inhale. I wanted to be made whole, but I couldn't go in faith. Turns out my journey was more waiting in the wilderness. I needed to faith the first step before I could see the walls crumbling down, but my belief was lame, my hope unwell, and my heart scattered up and down Interstate 95 because what water won't overturn, what fire won't consume, what will not prosper. You had to show me all while it was raging. I said it wasn't fair. And when I asked you why must I continue to see darkness in order to experience light, you reminded me that I've always been a hands-on learner. And right before the bow breaks, you gave me, I would have lost heart unless I believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And the straw that broke the camel's back became the same fiber that forged my foundation. Because isn't he equally as sovereign in the middle of the storm as he is on the other side of promise? Am I not meant to be found faithful here because you found me here? The solution from a life of my own design, trying to find my way back to you. But the coordinates look like they contradict the promises you made me. And I'm still trying to figure out if they really contradict or if this is just the discomfort of uncharted territory. Either way, Lord, I'm here to surrender. I don't have anything else left in me. The truth is, being used required healing. And my healing wasn't found pillaging to hilltops. My healing was birthed in the trenches.
The King of all glory made himself low to be